The sun was setting over the small coastal town, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The Ocean View Hotel stood tall against the backdrop of the ocean, its white walls gleaming under the fading sunlight. It was a place known for luxury, elegance, and strict rules. People came from far and wide to experience its grandeur, but on this particular evening, the hotel would find itself at the center of an unexpected storm. Inside the hotel, the lobby buzzed with activity. Guests were checking in and out, their voices blending with the soft clinking of glasses from the bar. Waiters moved gracefully between tables carrying trays of drinks and snacks. Everything seemed normal, until a young girl walked in. Her name was Maya, and she had no idea that her simple visit would turn into something unforgettable. Maya was 16 years old, with curly hair tied back in a ponytail and a warm smile that lit up her face. She wore a casual outfit, blue jeans, a gray hoodie, and sneakers. She wasn't staying at the hotel. She had come to meet her best friend Sarah, who was visiting with her family for the weekend. Maya had called Sarah earlier to confirm her room number, but when she arrived, she realized she didn't know exactly where to go. So, she approached the front desk. The receptionist behind the counter barely glanced up as Maya approached. When she finally looked up, her expression changed. Her lips pressed together and her eyes narrowed slightly. "Can I help you?" she asked, her tone clipped and unwelcoming. "Hi," Maya said politely, trying not to let the receptionist's cold demeanor bother her. "I'm here to see my friend Sarah. She's staying in room 302. Could you tell me how to get there?" The receptionist gave her a dismissive look, her gaze sweeping over Maya's casual clothes. "I'm sorry," she said curtly, "but we don't allow visitors without prior authorization. This is a private establishment." Maya blinked, caught off guard by the response. "Oh, I didn't know," she said quickly. "But I'm just here to see my friend. We've been planning this for days. Can't you call her room or something?" The receptionist shook her head firmly. "No exceptions," she said, turning her attention back to her computer screen as if the conversation was already over. Maya felt a knot form in her stomach. She tried again, her voice firmer this time. "Look, I'm not causing any trouble. I just want to see my friend. Please, can you at least call her room and let her know I'm here?" But the receptionist refused to budge. Instead, she pressed a button under the desk, and within seconds, 2 burly security guards appeared. They stood on either side of Maya, towering over her. One of them placed a hand on her shoulder, though not gently. "Miss, you'll need to leave now," he said, his voice low and intimidating. Maya's heart raced. She stepped back, feeling cornered and humiliated. "You don't have to do this," she protested, her voice trembling. "I'm not doing anything wrong." But the guards didn't listen. They escorted her toward the exit, ignoring her protests. As they pushed open the glass doors, Maya stumbled onto the sidewalk, her cheeks burning with embarrassment. She could feel the stares of other guests and passers-by, and it made her want to disappear. Standing outside, Maya took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes, but she blinked them away. She couldn't believe what had just happened. All she had wanted to do was see her friend, and now she was being treated like a criminal. It wasn't fair. As she stood there, replaying the scene in her mind, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out and saw that it was her dad calling. Reluctantly, she answered. "Hey, Dad," she said, trying to sound cheerful despite the turmoil inside her. "Hey, sweetheart." Her father's deep, reassuring voice came through the speaker. "How's it going? Did you meet Sarah yet?" Maya hesitated. She debated whether to tell him what had happened, but then decided she couldn't keep it bottled up. Taking another deep breath, she explained everything: the receptionist's rudeness, the security guard's aggression, and how she had been kicked out of the hotel. Her voice cracked as she spoke, and by the end, she was fighting back tears again. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. When her father finally spoke, his tone was calm but firm. "Stay right there," he said. "Don't move. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Maya wiped her eyes and nodded, even though he couldn't see her. "Okay, Dad," she whispered. She hung up and leaned against the hotel's exterior wall, waiting. She didn't have to wait long. Within 10 minutes, a sleek black car pulled up to the curb. The door opened and out stepped Marcus Thompson, the mayor of the city. He was a tall man with broad shoulders and a commanding presence. His dark suit and polished shoes made him stand out, but it was his expression that drew attention. His jaw was set, and his eyes burned with determination. Marcus walked straight to Maya, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. Maya nodded, though her red-rimmed eyes told a different story. "Yeah, I'm fine," she muttered. "Just embarrassed, I guess." Marcus gave her a small, sad smile. "Let's go inside," he said, his voice steady. "We're going to fix this." With that, father and daughter turned and walked back toward the hotel entrance. Neither of them noticed the murmurs of the people around them, nor did they care. What mattered was that something unjust had happened, and it was time to set things right. As they stepped through the glass doors, all eyes turned to them. The once bustling lobby fell silent, the air thick with tension. Marcus scanned the room, his gaze landing on the receptionist who had caused the trouble. Without hesitation, he strode toward the front desk, Maya following close behind. "I believe my daughter was mistreated here," Marcus began, his voice calm but laced with authority. "Care to explain why?" The receptionist froze, her face pale. For the first time that evening, she found herself completely speechless. The receptionist's face turned ashen as Marcus Thompson stood before her, his towering presence and commanding voice silencing the entire lobby. Her hands trembled slightly as she fumbled with the papers on the desk, trying to find something, anything to say in her defense. But no words came. She simply stared at him wide-eyed like a deer caught in headlights. Marcus wasn't one to waste time. He leaned forward slightly, his dark eyes piercing through her flimsy attempts at composure. "Let me make this clear," he said, his tone still calm but edged with steel. "My daughter walked into this hotel with nothing but the intention of seeing her friend. Instead of being treated with basic human decency, she was humiliated and thrown out like an intruder. Now I'd like to know why." The silence in the room grew heavier, almost suffocating. Guests who had been sipping their drinks or chatting quietly now watched intently, some whispering behind cupped hands while others openly gawked. The security guards who had escorted Maya out earlier shifted uncomfortably near the entrance, unsure whether to intervene or stay put. Everyone could feel the tension crackling in the air. Finally, the receptionist found her voice, though it wavered noticeably. "Sir, we have strict policies about visitors," she stammered, avoiding direct eye contact. We require prior authorization for anyone who isn't a registered guest. It's standard procedure." Marcus raised an eyebrow, unimpressed by her explanation. "Standard procedure?" he repeated slowly, letting the words hang in the air. "So, according to your standard procedure, my daughter, a teenager dressed casually, is automatically suspicious? Is that what you're saying?" The receptionist opened her mouth to respond, but quickly shut it again when she realized she had no good answer. Her cheeks flushed red, and she glanced desperately toward the back office, hoping someone, anyone, would come to her rescue. Just then, a door swung open, and a man in a tailored suit hurried forward. His polished appearance and confident stride suggested he was someone important. "Mayor Thompson," the man exclaimed, extending a hand as he approached. "I'm Robert Hayes, the general manager of the Ocean View Hotel. Please forgive this misunderstanding. I assure you we'll get to the bottom of it immediately." Marcus studied the man carefully before shaking his hand. There was something rehearsed about Robert's demeanor, as if he were used to smoothing over awkward situations with charm and empty promises. But Marcus wasn't easily swayed. He nodded curtly and gestured toward Maya, who stood silently beside him, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. "This is my daughter, Maya," Marcus said, his voice firm. "She was treated poorly here tonight, not because of any wrongdoing, but because of prejudice. And frankly, Mr. Hayes, I expect more from a place that prides itself on luxury and exclusivity." Robert's smile faltered for a moment, but he quickly recovered, plastering on a look of concern. Of course, Mayor Thompson. This kind of behavior is unacceptable, and I deeply apologize for the distress caused to your family. If you'd allow me, I'd like to discuss this further in my office so we can resolve the matter properly. Marcus considered the offer for a brief moment, then nodded. Very well, he said. But understand this. Half-hearted apologies won't cut it. I want answers and action. With that, Marcus placed a reassuring hand on Maya's shoulder and followed Robert toward the back office. As they moved away, the lobby erupted into hushed conversations. Guests speculated about what had just unfolded, piecing together fragments of the scene they had witnessed. Some expressed sympathy for Maya, while others criticized the hotel staff for their apparent lack of professionalism. A few even pulled out their phones, snapping photos and recording videos of the commotion. Meanwhile, inside Robert's office, the atmosphere was tense. The room was spacious and elegantly decorated, with plush chairs and framed awards adorning the walls. Yet none of that mattered now. Marcus took a seat across from Robert's desk, his posture rigid and unyielding. Maya sat beside him, clutching her father's hand tightly. Despite her outward calm, she couldn't shake the feeling of humiliation that lingered from earlier. Robert sank into his chair, clearly uneasy under Marcus's unwavering gaze. He cleared his throat and began speaking, choosing his words carefully. Mayor Thompson, let me begin by apologizing once again for the unfortunate incident involving your daughter. We value all our guests and strive to provide exceptional service. However, mistakes do happen, and I assure you we will hold those responsible accountable. Marcus listened impassively, his expression unreadable. When Robert finished, he leaned forward slightly, resting his elbows on his knees. Mistakes, you say? He said, his tone deceptively mild. Do you really believe this was just a simple mistake? Or was it something deeper? A reflection of biases that exist within your establishment? Robert blinked, taken aback by the accusation. Biases? He echoed weakly. No, absolutely not. We have zero tolerance for discrimination of any kind. Our staff undergoes regular training to ensure inclusivity and respect for everyone. Marcus arched an eyebrow skeptically. If that's true, then how do you explain what happened tonight? My daughter didn't threaten anyone, break any rules, or cause any disruption. She simply wanted to see her friend. And yet, she was treated like a criminal based solely on appearances. Tell me, Mr. Hayes, does that sound like inclusivity to you? Robert opened his mouth to reply, but hesitated, realizing there was no easy way out of this conversation. He glanced nervously at Maya, who met his gaze with quiet defiance. For a fleeting moment, guilt flickered across his face, but he quickly masked it with a practiced smile. You raise valid points, Mayor Thompson, Robert said, attempting to regain control of the situation. And I agree that what happened tonight falls far short of our standards. Rest assured, we will conduct a thorough investigation into the matter. In addition, I propose implementing new measures to prevent such incidents in the future, including enhanced sensitivity training for our staff. Marcus studied him for a long moment, weighing his sincerity. Finally, he nodded. Good. But I'll be keeping a close eye on this, Mr. Hayes. If I don't see meaningful change, rest assured I won't hesitate to take further action. Robert swallowed hard, nodding vigorously. Understood, Mayor Thompson. You have my word. As the meeting drew to a close, Marcus rose from his seat, pulling Maya up with him. Before leaving the office, he turned back to Robert, his voice steady and resolute. Remember this. Actions speak louder than words. Prove to me, and to everyone else, that this hotel truly values every guest, regardless of who they are or where they come from. With that, Marcus and Maya exited the office, stepping back into the lobby. The crowd parted as they made their way to the exit, their presence commanding respect and awe. As they stepped outside into the cool evening air, Maya finally allowed herself to exhale. The weight of the evening's events still pressed heavily on her shoulders, but having her father by her side gave her strength. Marcus wrapped an arm around her as they walked toward their car. You handled yourself well tonight, he said softly, pride evident in his voice. But I need you to know something. What happened wasn't your fault. No one deserves to be treated the way they treated you. Maya nodded, blinking back tears. Thanks, Dad, she murmured. But what happens next? Marcus smiled, a determined glint in his eyes. Next, we make sure this never happens to anyone else again. As they drove home, the events of the evening replayed in Maya's mind. Though the sting of rejection lingered, she also felt a spark of hope. Her father's promise to fight for justice ignited a fire within her, a desire to stand up for what was right, not just for herself but for others too. Little did she know, this was only the beginning of a journey that would leave a lasting impact on her life and on the world around her. The days following the incident at the Ocean View Hotel were anything but quiet. News of the confrontation spread like wildfire, first through whispers among guests and staff, then across social media platforms, and finally into local newspapers and television broadcasts. The story was everywhere. Mayor's daughter kicked out of luxury hotel. Headlines blared accusations of discrimination, sparking heated debates about privilege, prejudice, and accountability. For the hotel management, the fallout was immediate and overwhelming. Calls flooded their switchboard, some from angry citizens, demanding answers, others from concerned partners questioning whether they should continue doing business with the establishment. Online reviews painted a grim picture, with former guests recounting similar experiences of feeling unwelcome or judged based on their appearance. The once pristine reputation of the Ocean View Hotel was now tarnished, its name synonymous with controversy. Robert Hayes, the general manager, spent sleepless nights strategizing how to salvage the situation. He knew that half-hearted measures wouldn't cut it, not when the mayor himself had vowed to keep a close eye on the matter. Desperate to regain public trust, Robert called an emergency meeting with his senior team. They gathered in the conference room, tension hanging thick in the air as they brainstormed solutions. We need to act fast, Robert said, pacing back and forth. This isn't just about one incident anymore. It's about perception. And right now, our brand is under attack. One of his assistants suggested issuing a formal apology via press release. Another proposed hosting a charity event to demonstrate the hotel's commitment to inclusivity. But it was Cynthia, the head of human resources, who offered the most impactful idea. What if we host a public forum? She suggested hesitantly. Invite community leaders, activists, and even Mayor Thompson to participate. Let people voice their concerns and show them we're serious about change. The room fell silent as everyone considered the proposal. It was bold and risky, but it might be the only way to turn things around. After a long pause, Robert nodded. Let's do it, he said firmly. But we have to do it right. This can't just be for show, it has to be genuine. Meanwhile, Maya found herself at the center of attention in ways she hadn't anticipated. Friends texted her, constantly asking for details about what had happened. Strangers reached out on social media, praising her courage and sharing their own stories of discrimination. At first, the sudden spotlight made her uncomfortable. She wasn't used to being in the public eye, and the constant reminders of her humiliation stung deeply, but as time went on, something shifted inside her. Listening to others' experiences made her realize she wasn't alone. There were countless people who had faced similar treatment, people who didn't always have someone like her father to stand up for them. Slowly, Maya began to see her ordeal not as a personal defeat, but as an opportunity to make a difference. Her father noticed the change in her demeanor. One evening, as they sat together in the living room, Marcus turned off the TV and looked at her thoughtfully. "You've been awfully quiet lately," he said gently. "What's going through your mind?" Maya hesitated before responding. "I've been thinking about everything that happened, about how unfair it felt, and about all the other people who go through stuff like this every day. Dad, I don't want it to stop here. I want to help." Marcus smiled, pride swelling in his chest. "That's exactly why I love you, sweetheart. You're already turning pain into purpose. So tell me, what do you want to do?" Maya took a deep breath. "I want to speak at the hotel's forum. If they're really serious about making changes, Then maybe hearing my story will push them to actually follow through. Marcus nodded, approvingly. Then that's what we'll do. When the day of the forum arrived, the Ocean View Hotel's grand ballroom was packed. Rows of chairs filled the space, each one occupied by a mix of hotel staff, community members, journalists, and activists. A stage had been set up at the front, adorned with a podium and a banner that read, "Building Bridges Toward a More Inclusive Future." As Marcus and Maya entered the room, they were met with applause, a gesture that left Maya both humbled and nervous. She clutched her notes tightly, her heart pounding as she took her seat near the front. Her father gave her hand a reassuring squeeze before stepping up to the podium to deliver the opening remarks. "Thank you all for being here today," Marcus began, his voice steady and commanding. "This gathering isn't just about addressing a mistake. It's about creating meaningful change. Discrimination has no place in our society, whether it happens in a hotel lobby or anywhere else. Today we listen, we learn, and we commit to doing better." His words resonated throughout the room, earning nods of agreement from the audience. When he finished speaking, he gestured for Maya to join him on stage. As she walked up, the crowd erupted into another round of applause. Maya felt her cheeks flush, but she forced herself to focus. Taking a deep breath, she began to speak. "When I walked into the Ocean View Hotel that night, I didn't expect much," she said, her voice trembling slightly at first but growing stronger with each sentence. "All I wanted was to see my friend. Instead, I was treated like I didn't belong, like I wasn't good enough. That hurt. But what hurts even more is knowing that there are so many others who face this kind of treatment every single day." She paused, looking out at the sea of faces before continuing. "I'm not here to shame anyone. I'm here because I believe in second chances, for individuals, for businesses, and for communities. But those second chances come with responsibility. If we truly want to build a world where everyone feels welcome, we have to start by listening to each other and holding ourselves accountable." The room erupted into applause again, this time louder and more heartfelt. Tears glistened in the eyes of several attendees, moved by Maya's honesty and courage. Even Robert Hayes, seated in the front row, looked visibly shaken, his earlier arrogance replaced by genuine remorse. After Maya's speech, the floor opened for discussion. Community leaders shared insights on combating systemic racism, while activists highlighted the importance of representation and empathy. Hotel staff members bravely admitted their own biases, vowing to do better moving forward. For hours, the conversation flowed freely, raw and unfiltered, leaving no room for denial or deflection. By the end of the forum, it was clear that something significant had shifted. The Ocean View Hotel wasn't just apologizing, it was committing to transformation. New policies were announced, including mandatory sensitivity training for all employees and the creation of a diversity advisory board to oversee progress. Guests would now receive welcome packets emphasizing the hotel's zero-tolerance policy for discrimination, and feedback mechanisms were put in place to ensure accountability. As the event wrapped up, Marcus approached Robert with a firm handshake. "You've taken the first step," he said. "Now prove to us that you mean it." Robert nodded solemnly. "We will, Mayor Thompson. Thank you for pushing us to be better." Back home that night, Maya reflected on the day's events. Though the journey ahead would undoubtedly be challenging, she felt a renewed sense of hope. For the first time since the incident, she allowed herself to imagine a future where places like the Ocean View Hotel weren't just symbols of luxury, but also bastions of inclusivity and respect. Her father joined her on the couch, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "Proud of you, kiddo," he said warmly. "Today you showed the world what real strength looks like." Maya leaned into his embrace, smiling softly. "Thanks, Dad. But I couldn't have done it without you." They sat in comfortable silence, for a while watching the stars twinkle outside the window. The road to justice was long, but together, they were ready to walk it, one step at a time. The weeks following the Ocean View Hotel's public forum were a whirlwind of activity. The hotel staff, once indifferent to issues of discrimination, now found themselves at the center of a massive transformation. Mandatory sensitivity training sessions became a regular part of their schedules, with experts flown in from across the country to lead workshops on bias awareness and cultural competence. Employees who had previously dismissed such topics as unnecessary were now forced to confront uncomfortable truths about their own behaviors and assumptions. For some, the process was eye-opening. A housekeeping attendant named Clara, who had worked at the hotel for over a decade, admitted during one session that she often avoided interacting with guests who looked different because she feared saying or doing the wrong thing. "I didn't realize I was being unfair," she confessed tearfully. "I thought staying quiet meant I wasn't causing harm, but now I see how wrong I was." Others, however, resisted the changes. The receptionist who had initially turned away Maya, her name was Lisa, struggled to accept responsibility for her actions. During a particularly heated training session, she argued that the incident was simply a misunderstanding and not rooted in prejudice. "I followed protocol," she insisted, her voice rising defensively. "How was I supposed to know she was the mayor's daughter?" Her outburst sparked a tense debate among her colleagues, many of whom felt she was deflecting blame instead of owning up to her mistakes. One of the trainers, a seasoned diversity consultant named Jamal, addressed her directly. "It doesn't matter if you knew who she was," he said firmly. "What matters is that your decision was influenced by stereotypes, by assumptions, based on appearance rather than facts. That's what we're here to unpack and change." Lisa sat silently after that, her face flushed with shame. It wasn't easy for her, or for anyone, to face these hard truths, but the hotel management made it clear that resistance wouldn't be tolerated. Those who failed to demonstrate progress risked losing their jobs. Meanwhile, outside the hotel walls, the story continued to dominate headlines. Social media buzzed with discussions about the incident, with hashtags like #Justice for Maya and #Inclusive Hotels trending nationwide. Activists praised Mayor Thompson for using his platform to advocate for systemic change, while critics accused him of grandstanding. Some even questioned whether the entire ordeal was staged for publicity. But for Maya, the attention was bittersweet. On one hand, she was grateful for the support pouring in from strangers who shared their own stories of discrimination. On the other hand, she couldn't shake the feeling that her experience had been reduced to a spectacle, a cautionary tale for others to dissect and debate. She wanted people to focus less on her personal humiliation and more on the broader issue of inequality. Her father noticed her growing frustration and pulled her aside one evening. "You're carrying a lot on your shoulders," Marcus said gently. "Do you want to step back, take a break from all this?" Maya shook her head. "No," she replied firmly. "If anything, I want to keep going, but I wish people would stop treating me like a victim. I'm not just some symbol, I'm a person. And so are all the others who've gone through this." Marcus nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. "Then let's shift the narrative," he suggested. "Instead of focusing solely on what happened to you, let's highlight the solutions. Show people what real progress looks like." Inspired by her father's words, Maya decided to channel her energy into something constructive. With his guidance, she launched a social media campaign called Open Doors, Open Hearts. The initiative aimed to educate businesses and individuals about inclusivity, offering practical tips and resources to foster welcoming environments. Each post featured a different story, some from Maya herself, others from guest contributors, who had faced discrimination in various settings. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of followers joined the movement, sharing their thoughts and experiences in the comments section. Local schools invited Maya to speak at assemblies, where students eagerly asked questions about overcoming adversity and standing up for justice. Even national news outlets took notice, featuring her campaign in segments about youth activism. Back at the Ocean View Hotel, the changes weren't limited to training programs. Management introduced new policies designed to prevent similar incidents in the future. Visitors no longer needed prior authorization to enter the premises. Instead, they were welcomed warmly and directed to their intended destinations. Staff members wore badges declaring their commitment to inclusivity, serving as constant reminders of the values the hotel now stood for. To further demonstrate their dedication, the hotel partnered with local organizations focused on racial equity and social justice. Together, they hosted monthly events celebrating diverse cultures, from art exhibits showcasing Black artists to culinary nights, highlighting international cuisines. These initiatives not only brought in new customers but also helped rebuild trust within the community. Robert Hayes, the general manager, played a key role in driving these efforts. Though initially reluctant, he gradually embraced his responsibility to lead by example. He began attending town hall meetings, listening to residents' concerns, and incorporating their feedback into the hotel's operations. His newfound humility earned him respect from those who had once doubted his sincerity. One day, as Robert walked through the lobby, he spotted Maya sitting in a corner with her father. They were reviewing documents related to her campaign, oblivious to the curious glances of passers-by. Summoning his courage, Robert approached them. "Mayor Thompson, Miss Maya," he said, extending a handshake. "I just wanted to thank you both for holding us accountable and giving us a chance to grow. We still have a long way to go, but I truly believe we're heading in the right direction." Marcus accepted the handshake with a nod, while Maya offered a small smile. "We'll be watching," she said softly, "and we'll keep speaking up if things don't improve." Robert understood the weight of her words. "Fair enough," he replied. "You have my word. We won't let you down." As the months passed, the Ocean View Hotel transformed in ways no one could have predicted. Once known primarily for its opulence, it became a beacon of inclusivity, a place where everyone, regardless of background, felt valued and respected. Guests praised the warm hospitality they received, noting how much friendlier the staff seemed compared to before. Online reviews reflected this shift, with glowing testimonials replacing the scathing critiques of the past. For Maya, the journey had been life-changing. What started as a painful experience had evolved into an opportunity to inspire others and drive meaningful change. She continued running her campaign, expanding its reach beyond the local community to cities across the country. Her confidence grew with each success, bolstered by the unwavering support of her father and friends. On a quiet evening several months later, Maya stood on the balcony of her home, gazing out at the ocean. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. She thought about everything that had happened, the tears, the anger, the triumph, and realized how far she'd come. Her father joined her, leaning against the railing beside her. "You've done incredible work, kiddo," he said proudly. "But remember, this is just the beginning. There's still so much more to do." Maya nodded, a determined look in her eyes. "I know," she said, "and I'm ready." Together, they watched the waves crash against the shore, the sound soothing and steady. The fight for equality was far from over, but Maya knew she had the strength and the support to keep pushing forward. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she faced them with hope, resilience, and an unshakable belief in the power of change. Months had passed since the Ocean View Hotel's public forum, and the changes within its walls were undeniable. The once stiff atmosphere had softened, replaced by a warmth that extended to every corner of the establishment. Guests noticed it immediately, from the friendly smiles of the receptionists to the genuine care shown by housekeeping staff. The hotel was no longer just a place to stay. It had become a space where people felt truly seen and valued. But transformation wasn't limited to the hotel alone. Across the city, conversations about inclusivity and equality gained momentum. Mayor Marcus Thompson capitalized on the heightened awareness, using his position to push for broader reforms. He introduced legislation aimed at combating discrimination in businesses, schools, and public spaces. These laws required organizations to undergo mandatory diversity training and implement clear policies addressing bias. Critics accused him of overreach, but supporters hailed the measures as long overdue. Maya, meanwhile, continued to grow into her role as an advocate. Her campaign, "Open Doors, Open Hearts," had evolved from a small social media initiative into a full-fledged movement. Schools invited her to speak during assemblies, community centers hosted workshops based on her ideas, and even national news outlets featured her story. She became a symbol of resilience, a young girl who turned a painful experience into a catalyst for change. Despite her growing fame, Maya remained grounded. Her father reminded her often that activism wasn't about seeking recognition, but about making a difference. "It's not about you," he told her one evening after a particularly draining day of interviews. "It's about the people whose voices aren't being heard. Keep them at the center of everything you do." Maya took those words to heart. Instead of focusing solely on her own experiences, she began amplifying the stories of others. She partnered with local nonprofits to highlight marginalized communities, sharing their struggles and triumphs through videos, blog posts, and live events. One of her most impactful projects involved interviewing Black business owners who faced discrimination while trying to secure loans or rent spaces. Their stories resonated deeply with audiences, sparking outrage and calls for accountability. At the Ocean View Hotel, Robert Hayes worked tirelessly to ensure the institution lived up to its new reputation. He implemented monthly check-ins with employees to discuss progress and challenges related to inclusivity. Staff members were encouraged to share feedback anonymously, ensuring no one felt pressured to sugarcoat their concerns. Slowly but surely, trust began to rebuild, not just between the hotel and its guests, but also among the staff themselves. One afternoon, Lisa, the receptionist who had initially turned away Maya, approached Robert hesitantly. Since the incident, she had kept a low profile, fearful of backlash from both colleagues and guests. Sensitivity training had forced her to confront her biases, but guilt still weighed heavily on her conscience. Now, standing before Robert, she mustered the courage to speak. "Mr. Hayes," she began nervously, I wanted to apologize again for what happened with Maya. Not because I have to, but because I mean it. I've been doing a lot of reflecting, and I realize how wrong I was. I don't want to be that person anymore." Robert studied her for a moment, noting the sincerity in her voice. "Apologies are important," he said finally, "but actions matter more. Are you willing to prove that you've changed?" Lisa nodded vigorously. "Yes, absolutely, whatever it takes." True to her word, Lisa threw herself into her work with renewed dedication. She volunteered to lead peer mentoring sessions for new hires, emphasizing the importance of treating every guest with respect. Over time, her efforts paid off. Not only did her coworkers begin to trust her again, but guests also complimented her professionalism and kindness. As the months rolled on, the Ocean View Hotel celebrated milestones that would have seemed impossible just a year earlier. It received awards for excellence in customer service and inclusivity, earning praise from industry leaders and advocacy groups alike. Local artists were invited to display their work in the lobby, turning the space into a vibrant gallery showcasing diverse talents. Even the menu at the hotel restaurant underwent a revamp, featuring dishes inspired by cuisines from around the world. The hotel's success didn't go unnoticed. Other businesses in the area began reaching out to learn how they could replicate its transformation. Robert welcomed these inquiries, hosting seminars and sharing resources with fellow managers. "Change is contagious," he often said during these sessions. "If we can do it, so can you." For Maya, the journey brought moments of joy and frustration in equal measure. While she celebrated victories like the passing of anti-discrimination laws and the growing reach of her campaign, she also faced setbacks. Some critics dismissed her efforts as naive or overly idealistic, arguing that systemic racism couldn't be solved by goodwill alone. Others accused her of benefiting financially from her activism, despite the fact that she donated all proceeds from speaking engagements and merchandise sales to charity. Through it all, Maya leaned on her support system, her family, friends, and mentors to stay focused. Her father remained her biggest cheerleader, reminding her that progress was rarely linear. "There will always be people who doubt you," he told her one evening. "But don't let them distract you from the bigger picture. Every step forward counts." Inspired by this advice, Maya decided to expand her campaign beyond the digital realm. She organized a citywide event called Unity Day, inviting residents to come together for a day of workshops, performances, and discussions centered on diversity and inclusion. Local musicians, poets, and dancers showcased their talents, while activists led panels on topics ranging from workplace equity to affordable housing. The turnout surpassed everyone's expectations. Thousands of people filled the park where the event was held, their laughter and chatter creating an electric energy. Children played games designed to teach empathy, while adults engaged in meaningful conversations about privilege and allyship. By the end of the day, attendees left with hearts full of hope and minds brimming with ideas for action. Back at home that night, Maya sat on her bed scrolling through photos from Unity Day. Her phone buzzed constantly with messages of gratitude and admiration, but she barely glanced at them. Instead, she reflected on how far she'd come and how much farther she still had to go. Her father knocked lightly on her door before stepping inside. "Proud of you, kiddo," he said, sitting beside her. "Today was something special." Maya smiled faintly. "Yeah, it was, but sometimes I wonder, is it enough? Are we really making a difference?" Marcus placed a hand on her shoulder. "It's never going to feel like enough, not when there's still so much work to be done. But look around you, Maya. Look at the lives you've touched, the conversations you've started. That's real change." Tears welled up in Maya's eyes, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of determination. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but she also knew she wasn't walking it alone. With her father by her side and a community rallying behind her, she felt ready to face whatever came next. As she drifted off to sleep that night, one thought lingered. In her mind, change wasn't a destination, it was a journey, and she was determined to keep moving forward, one step at a time. As the years rolled by, the Ocean View Hotel became more than just a symbol of luxury. It evolved into a model for inclusivity and compassion. Its transformation served as proof that even institutions steeped in tradition could adapt and grow when faced with accountability. The hotel's leadership, once resistant to change, now embraced it wholeheartedly, ensuring that every decision they made aligned with their renewed commitment to equality. Robert Hayes retired after a decade of service, leaving behind a legacy of resilience and reform. In his farewell speech, he acknowledged the pivotal role Maya and her father had played in reshaping the hotel's identity. "This place isn't what it used to be," he admitted, his voice thick with emotion. "And thank goodness for that. We learned that true excellence isn't about how grand your building is or how polished your staff appears. It's about how you make people feel." And today, I'm proud to say we're getting it right. The hotel continued to thrive under new management, maintaining its reputation as a haven for all. Guests from diverse backgrounds felt welcomed and respected, knowing their presence mattered. Employees, too, benefited from the shift. Morale soared as workers found pride in contributing to a culture of kindness and fairness. For Maya, life took on new dimensions as she transitioned from a teenager navigating adversity to a young adult leading movements for justice. Her campaign, Open Doors, Open Hearts, expanded globally, inspiring communities worldwide to challenge discrimination and embrace diversity. What began as a personal mission transformed into a collective effort, uniting people across continents in the pursuit of equity. Universities invited her to deliver keynote speeches, where students eagerly absorbed her insights on activism and allyship. Corporations sought her counsel, eager to implement policies fostering inclusive environments. Even government officials consulted her when drafting legislation aimed at dismantling systemic barriers. Despite the accolades, Maya remained humble, always redirecting praise to the countless individuals who supported her cause. Her father watched her blossom with quiet pride. Marcus often marveled at how his daughter had turned pain into purpose, using her voice not only to heal herself but also to uplift others. He knew the journey hadn't been easy. There were moments when doubt crept in, when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her, but she persevered, driven by an unwavering belief in the possibility of change. One evening, as they sat together on The porch of their home, Marcus broke the comfortable silence. "You've come so far, sweetheart," he said softly. "Do you ever stop to think about where this all started?" Maya smiled, leaning back in her chair. "Sometimes," she replied. "It's hard to believe that one bad night led to all of this. But I guess sometimes it takes hitting rock bottom to realize you can build something better." Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "And look what you've built. A movement, a community, a brighter future. You've shown people that they have the power to create change no matter how small they might feel." Maya's smile widened, though a hint of sadness lingered in her eyes. "I just wish it didn't take so much hurt to get here. So many people still face discrimination every day, and not everyone has someone like you to stand up for them." Her words hung in the air, a reminder that while progress had been made, the fight was far from over. Marcus reached over, squeezing her hand gently. "That's why we keep going," he said firmly. "Because every little bit helps. Every story shared, every policy changed. It all adds up." Years later, Maya stood on a stage unlike any she'd encountered before. It was the annual Global Equality Summit, held in a sprawling convention center filled with thousands of attendees from around the world. As she stepped up to the podium, the audience erupted into applause, their cheers echoing through the vast hall. She paused, taking a deep breath before beginning her speech. "When I was 16, she said, her voice steady, yet warm, "I walked into a hotel hoping to see my friend. Instead, I walked out feeling invisible, like I didn't belong. At the time, I couldn't have imagined that such a painful experience would lead me here, to a room full of people united by a shared vision of justice and equality." She went on to recount the events that followed: the confrontation with the hotel staff, the public forum, the launch of her campaign, and the ripple effects that spread far beyond her hometown. But she didn't dwell on her own achievements. Instead, she highlighted the stories of others, the activists, educators, and everyday citizens who worked tirelessly to dismantle prejudice in their communities. "Change doesn't happen because of one person," she emphasized. "It happens because of all of us. Together, we've proven that empathy is stronger than bias, that unity is more powerful than division. And while there's still so much work to be done, I believe in our ability to keep moving forward." The time she finished speaking, the crowd was on its feet, cheering wildly. Tears streamed down some faces, while others clapped fervently, moved by her message of hope and determination. Maya stepped back from the podium, overwhelmed by the love and support surrounding her. Backstage after the event, Maya was greeted by familiar faces, friends, mentors, and allies who had joined her on this journey. Among them was Lisa, the former receptionist who had once turned her away. Now a manager at another hotel, Lisa approached her hesitantly, holding out a handwritten note. "I wanted to give you this," she said, her voice trembling. It's a thank you letter. For everything you've done, not just for me, but for everyone." Maya accepted the note graciously, smiling warmly. "Thank you," she replied, "for proving that people can change. That's what gives me hope." Later that night, as Maya lay in bed reflecting on the day's events, she realized something profound. The scars of that fateful evening at the Ocean View Hotel would always remain, a reminder of the injustice she endured, but they no longer defined her. Instead, they fueled her passion for creating a world where no one else had to carry such burdens. Her phone buzzed quietly on the nightstand, lighting up with messages from friends and supporters congratulating her on the summit. She read each one carefully, grateful for the connections she'd forged along the way. Finally, she set the device aside and gazed out the window at the starlit sky. The road ahead would undoubtedly be challenging, filled with obstacles and uncertainties, but Maya knew she wasn't alone. With her father's guidance, her community's solidarity, and her unyielding resolve, she was ready to face whatever came next. As sleep finally claimed her, one thought lingered in her mind. Change wasn't perfect. It was messy, imperfect, and ongoing. Yet within that imperfection lay beauty, strength, and endless possibilities. And for Maya, that was enough.